My name is Amy Vedder. I had long been dreaming of the land of gorillas. As for me, taking care of these animals is more than a passion. It happens that you spend your days and nights alone with them. And the more you take care of them, the more you observe them, the more you love them. I first followed in their footsteps in 1973. The Belgian researcher Dian Fossey had guided me through the thick and luxuriant vegetation of the volcanic mountains. He was familiar with gorillas. As for me, the first encounter was terrible. The shrill screams of the big apes who were alarmed by our presence made my blood run cold. I then remember fugitive visions of gorillas moving through the mist and the trees, and of the glances of a big male, less than 10 meters away from us. I came back a few years later, after my PhD in the United States. That time, I had access to the research center of Karisoki, founded in 1967 by the National Geographic. At that time, Rwanda wasn't torn apart by civil war, and we could find there a favorable atmosphere for scientific expeditions such as ours. In order to transport our supplies and the cinema equipment, about 30 African porters helped us tremendously. Indeed, as they were used to the climate and the altitude, they were more efficient than us to climb the steep slopes of the volcano. The film team, composed of 4 people, had preceded the party in order to find the most beautiful landscapes. Our first aim is to reach the Karisoki camp by climbing the passes of the Karisimbi and Bisoki volcanoes. The ascent is difficult in the cold and humidity, in the middle of a vegetation first composed principally of bamboos and which becomes scarce further up. We struggle on 50-degree slopes which are often slippery. Gorillas were first identified in the region at the end of the last century. In 1898, Grooming discovered the skeleton of a giant ape, and in 1902, the German Oskar von Behring and Dr. England, who were trying to climb up Mount Sabinio, caught glimpses of big black apes. In that environment, Dian Fossey, a great specialist of primates, immortalized in the film Gorillas in the Mist, spent 12 years, cut off from the world, studying the behavior of these big apes who had become her friends. For the first 2 years of observation, she lived under a tent, lost in a humid atmosphere all year long, and in a mist so thick that it becomes liquid. Dian may be the only human being to have been able to live in such an inhospitable place. Around her, teams of young scientists followed one another. Their stay never exceeded 2 years, the extreme limit of human resistance in this hostile environment. This center is situated in the heart of the Volcanoes National Park. The chain of volcanoes lies between Rwanda and a vast territory of Zaire, where the famous Nyiragongo volcano is still active. This area of volcanic land represents something exceptional for the world. It remains the sanctuary of a very rare bird fauna and the habitat of endangered species. Dian Fossey's works weren't in vain. A team of young researchers carried on, following and observing the various groups of gorillas on the slippery slopes of the volcanoes. Rwanda's volcanoes park is composed of steep slopes and of deep ravines. The altitude, the topography and the climate combine to reduce the agricultural value of this area to nothing. My mission was triple. I had to study the ecology of the mountain gorillas, their relations with the environment, to determine their need for food and how they answer it, and lastly, to count the surviving specimens. A cinema team accompanied us on these difficult reliefs where several families of gorillas live. Thanks to Dian Fossey's research, around 20 groups were identified, but we were able to approach only 5 of them, among which Group 5 composed of 13 specimens. Only how could we see them? Their movements are very varied, ranging between a few hundred meters to a few kilometers a day, depending on the choice of their food. They are used to the presence of human beings, but noise disturbs them. The group we were going to meet had already been studied. Theoretically, they could be observed without problem. However, I expected screams, growlings, brusque movements. I'm getting near the place where they evolve with a certain apprehension, and I'm still wondering whether I'll be accepted by the group we have chosen. In order to meet gorillas, you first have to be discreet. Stay silent so as not to alarm them. Bend down so that they won't feel threatened. First you observe them from a certain distance, then you can approach them. At the beginning of the shooting, I feared the reactions of the gorillas very much, since we had never been more than 2 people on their territory. They're staring at us, which means that we disturb them a little. The tactics then are to imitate their singing so as to reassure them. The closer you get to the animal, the more you have to slow down your gestures, or even stay still. The gorillas we are observing, and who quickly became familiar to us, are regular visitors. That's why one of them can even come and touch us. I remember my emotion when it first happened. The domains of the different groups of gorillas can overlap each other. They are not really defended, and sometimes families meet. It may be only an auditory contact without seeing each other, or else a confrontation on both sides of a ravine. More rarely, gorillas from different families get on well, or fight each other. Generally not seriously, and most of the time in order to prevent the females from changing groups. Within the context of our research, we gave names to each member of the different groups, not by anthropomorphism, but for more practical reasons, although most of the individuals often have a lot in common with their names. First, there's Beethoven, the dominant male. 7 feet tall and 180 kilos. He's what we call a silverback, a sign which distinguishes a gorilla who has achieved his sexual maturity from other immature males and adult females. Beethoven impresses everyone, and us too. There is another silverback in the group, his son Icarus, who bears a crest on his head just like his father. Icarus is only 18 and he doesn't have the authority of his father, who exerts a permanent control on the rest of the group, using special screams or physical interventions. And whenever Beethoven and Icarus fight over the favors of a female on heat, the father always gets the upper hand. The family includes 2 mature females. Marchesa and Effie are over 25, when the average life expectancy is around 40 or 50. Marchesa, the most solitary, is even beginning to lose the hair on her shoulders. Effie looks suspicious. Smaller than the males and without crests or protruding canines, they both have a huge round belly and sagging breasts. Pansy and Pug are respectively Marchesa and Effie's daughters. Beethoven being the father in both cases, they are also half-sisters. Although fully grown up, they are smaller than their mother and often quarrel. If ever their mothers join in, the fight may get worse and involve the whole family. Tuck and Ziz are still young. Tuck, 6½, Effie's daughter, is the most curious of the group. She loves to come near human visitors and watch herself in the camera lens. Thanks to the fact that we approach them slowly, little by little, These quiet and peaceful animals not only tolerated us among their group, but they also became curious enough to want to become initiated to the technique of filming and of the handling of cameras. Ziz, Marchesa's son, is the most playful. As he's not shy, he's capable of provoking everybody, including the impressive Beethoven. Then there's Pablo, who from his 4 years and a half looks down to the other little ones. Pablo is different. First, as he had been very early familiarized with the presence of unknown observers, he's spontaneously closer to us. Not really enthusiastic about playing with his fellow gorillas. Being of an individualistic nature, Pablo is particular because he's lost his mother, who left to join another group. He wanted to make up for this loss and first turned to me. Generally, the line of conduct of a researcher is to avoid reacting to such a behavior, to do nothing. But in order to avoid creating a dependence, I refused the contact. And Pablo naturally went and found the protection of Beethoven, his father. In order to observe the gorillas, I tried my best to imitate their gestures, the way they scratch, or even how they eat. I slowed down, made smoother and supple all my movements. I never tried to intervene in their activities. I don't know what they thought of me, but my adaptation was easier. I got used to sitting long hours among the gorillas with my notepad on my lap. I scrupulously note down my observations. Each plant the gorillas eat is itemized, recorded. The quantity is estimated. Every behavior and gesture is reported. Several hours can thus go by without getting bored. A day in the life of a gorilla begins with yawnings and sticky eyes after a 12-hour night's sleep. Everyone makes his own nest except the children who sleep with their mother, every evening in a different place. They are round and comfortable platforms made of intertwined herbs and branches. A gorilla usually wakes up between 6:30 and 7:30, sometimes much later when it's raining. One by one, they leave the nest they built the night before. Then they look for their breakfast among the dense vegetation. African gorillas are vegetarian. Larvae and insects are the only rare infringement to their diet. Today's menu: bamboo shoots, wild celery, nettles, thistles, and a liana called gallium. A gorilla eats seated, catching the plants around him by the handful. He then does the same thing a little farther, and this for several hours, until around noon, with a rest in the middle of the morning. After lunch, it's time for a nap. The gorillas lie down to sleep or rest, their face and chest exposed to the sun when there is any. They often love to be in contact with each other and form a strange chain of black hairy balls. The time of their nap is also used for grooming, an essential activity in the day of a gorilla. Grooming is cleaning your hair from parasites and other rubbish. But it's also a way of establishing and reinforcing the social links within a group. Most often, mothers groom their children, but sometimes it's the opposite. You can also see cultural differences from one family to another. In Beethoven's family, females clean the male, whereas it's the opposite in the neighboring observation group. During their nap, the young gorillas play, wrestling, but also their own version of tag, or else solitary games, paddling in a mud pool, hanging from tree branches. As the dominant male is the father of all the immature individuals in the group, the problem of consanguinity is raised. Gorillas deal with that differently from other primate species. Males and females leave their native group when they reach sexual maturity. The male may wander alone for a few years before starting his own family. But he doesn't always manage. As for the female, she directly joins another family, or a solitary male. Anyway, this rule prevents the adult in the same group from being of the same blood. After a statutory 2 or 3 hour nap, the gorilla goes back in search of food. As in the morning, they eat scattered, each in his own dining area, and the one who comes to encroach upon another's place will be in trouble. He is reprimanded with unequivocal screams. Only the children stay close to their mothers. In order to find his daily sustenance, a gorilla has to walk a lot. The Group 5, driven by Beethoven, thus moves around a territory which ranges from a narrow strip of bamboos at the foot of the volcanoes to a subalpine area. During the rain season, the group principally confines itself in the area of the bamboos and feed on young shoots. Gorillas communicate with each other with kind of songs called singing, made of modulated sounds which range from shrill to low. The filmmakers have given me a small tape recorder with a microphone equipped with a protection for the wind. The members of the group have never seen such an object, and this arouses their curiosity. Pablo is the most interested by the sound recording. It's sometimes difficult for us scientists to avoid the contact with this very sociable animal, but as far as we can, we have to refrain any gesture towards them. The gorillas are now close enough for us to identify them, using the method of George Schaller, a great specialist in this species towards the end of the 50s. The pattern of the wrinkles above the nostrils enables us to distinguish every individual. It's a little like its ID card. Very soon after his birth, a baby gorilla becomes the mascot of the group. The presence of a newcomer arouses the curiosity of the whole group. For a few weeks, each gorilla tries to get the closest possible to the newborn baby. Some even try to touch it. The vigilant mother drives the intruders away by turning her back on them and hurling shrill screams at them. Only after a few months did Puck let her sister touch her son's bottom. Since a study by George Schaller, mountain gorillas have been classified according to their age and sex. Until about 4, a young gorilla is dependent on her mother for everything. She gives him her milk, shelters him from the rain, protects him, carries him in her arms or on her back. When he becomes more independent, the infant gorilla spends more time with his father, but he still sucks at his mother's breast until weaning. Then, until 6, the gorilla is said to be juvenile. He remains close to his parents, but builds his own nest and wanders alone to meet his fellow gorillas. The juvenile gorilla is often very playful. One day, Pablo and Poppy tied me with liana, running round me as if I were an ordinary tree trunk. I had to cut the liana with my teeth to free myself. From 6 to 8, the gorilla is a sub-adult. He still can groom his mother, but his games sometimes become sexual. The sub-adult female can already choose to emigrate to another group. Around 8, a gorilla reaches adulthood. However, the silver color on his back and the crest on his head only appear 3 or 4 years later. In the course of her life, which as I said lasts between 35 and 40 years, a female gives birth to 4 or 5 viable descendants. The menstrual cycle of the mother gorilla is of 28 days. During her short period of heat, 1 or 2 days a month, she is the sole preoccupation of the dominant male. It's the female who generally incites mating. It occurs several times a day and can last up to 20 minutes. The mating is accompanied by specific screams. The silverback male is always more irascible during these periods of time. It's very difficult to see that a mother gorilla is pregnant, since her belly is always huge. Only after the weaning of her child will she be able to go back to any sexual activity. It's a natural birth control. From time to time, gorilla families are affected by infantile diseases. Infanticide occurs as well. But overall, poaching is a strong threat. During my stay, I was able to see the damages of this plague. Almost 10% of the gorillas of Mount Karisoki have been victims of poachers. The hunting of gorillas is a relatively recent phenomenon, without any historical roots. Animals are not slaughtered for their meat, but to supply a trade of skulls and of living baby gorillas. Customers often act as mediators for museums or zoo parks. Only how can we track them down? As long as the traffic goes on, so will poaching. Guided by a patrolman from Rwanda, I spent more than 70 days methodically exploring the park from east to west in order to count the living specimens. I literally tracked them down. The most visible traces are the places where the grass and shoots have been flattened, the droppings and the nests. By counting the nests, the observer can determine the number of independent individuals. Examining the nests also enables us to distinguish age and sex. You also find there their excrement, which serve as insulators against the cold. These droppings, according to their size, also give us information about the age and sex of those who left them. Only children under 6 months old leave no traces in their nests. By following these methods, I was able to number 152 gorillas dispatched in 18 groups in the volcano park and in some sectors in Zaire. By adding the 90 to 100 specimens of the Mount Mikeno area, you come to a total of less than 250 for the area of the Virungas. In 1960, George Schaller had counted between 400 and 500 of them for the same region. The decrease in the population of the gorilla is alarming, and their low rate of breeding doesn't make us optimistic. However, the two major causes remain from human origin: poaching and encroachment. The total eradication of poaching wouldn't be enough to guarantee the surviving of the gorillas of the Virungas. Rwanda is one of the poorest countries in the world. At the time, its population numbered 5 million people for a very undulating country, and its density reached more than 300 inhabitants per square kilometer in the fertile area around the park. In the past, every family owned one hill. Then these were divided, so that 900 families remain on these lands. Since the dramatic events which have shaken up this country, more than 3/4 of the population have been moved. The coming back of the inhabitants is shy and painful. National parks have become hideouts for guerrilla warfare. Gorillas no longer benefit from the protection of national guards, and scientific research programs have had to be put to an end. Of course, the dangers which hang over mountain gorillas seem derisory when compared to the slaughter of human populations. Yet the problem is to fight against the extinction of a particularly rare race of anthropoid apes. And the scientific value of the gorillas is no longer to be proved. Along with the chimpanzees, these are the animals closest to man. We have 97% of genetic material in common, not to mention a probable ancestor a few million years ago. Within the context of research on human evolution, the gorilla is therefore a precious ally. You can add to that aesthetical arguments. I'm not the only one to find that mountain gorillas are absolutely fascinating creatures. These big apes, as it was proved by the American Penny Patterson, are also capable of assimilating the sign language and of reaching an IQ of 90. Gorillas are also sociable beings with a developed intelligence. We were able to see how curious of us they were and of the items we were carrying. How could we deprive them of the right to live freely? The Virunga region represents one of the rarest ecosystems of pluvial forests in heights. With time, water and vegetation have sculpted the ultimate refuge of these mountain gorillas. For me, Amy Vedder, this journey into the land of the mountain gorillas will remain an unforgettable experience. My job as a researcher generally inspires coldness from scientific observation. But by meeting these animals who are so close to us, almost our cousins, with their attitudes which singularly recall human behavior, I experienced sensations which were well beyond a plain zoological job. I never imagined that the contact with gorillas could be established so easily. When you're precocious enough to approach them, these big apes can be very soft, sometimes playful, but all in all rather cooperative. On several occasions, I could even note a certain delicacy in their gestures. I'm still amazed by the fact that gorillas have had such a bad reputation for so long. When you think that a little more than 1 century ago, they were considered dangerous monsters, that men tracked down and slaughtered these animals who look so much like us. I came back from Rwanda with mixed feelings. As a researcher, I felt I had fulfilled my duty. But as a human being, I remained under the charm of my encounter with gorillas. I understood that Dian Fossey went as far as living with them, sharing their rather hostile environment. I still think about them today, with the secret hope that peace will at last find its way on these wonderful lands.